Hi everyone, welcome to the Dear Human series. Here we discuss all the things nobody told us about how to be human. In today's episode, which is episode number 6, we will be discussing about how spiritual people and spirituality gets judged so heavily in today's society. I'm going to be reading out a blog post that I wrote. And yeah, here goes. So the title is I Went Looking for God, I Found Judgment Along the Way. 5 years ago, I started my spiritual journey. I thought I was going to find God. I didn't realize I was also going to find out just how many people around me had appointed themselves his spokesperson. Suddenly, what I ate mattered, what I drank mattered, what I said mattered, how I reacted mattered, how I dressed, what I believed, what I posted, how I behaved when I was angry, how I handled people who hurt me. Apparently, all of it was now evidence in a very unofficial court case titled, Is She Actually Spiritual? And the prosecution has been surprisingly enthusiastic. They stop seeing you as a human being and start seeing you as a spiritual advertisement. You are no longer allowed to have an ordinary bad day, lose your temper, be confused, inconsistent, contradictory, or do something that doesn't fit neatly into their idea of what a spiritual person should eat, drink, say, or do. Because apparently, the moment you start looking for God, you are expected to behave as though you have already met God personally and been handed the instruction manual for human perfection. But here's the inconvenient truth. I never said I was enlightened. I said I was searching. There is a difference. I'm not walking around claiming to have transcended the human experience. I am trying my very level best to understand it. And sometimes understanding yourself is an uglier process than people like to admit. Because spirituality, if you actually take it seriously, doesn't just give you peace, it takes away all your excuses. You begin to see your own ego, how much of your life has been driven by the need to be liked, the need to be right, the need to control, the need to be chosen, the need to be understood, the need to win. You see the little manipulations you didn't recognize as manipulation, the insecurity hiding underneath the confidence, the fear hiding underneath the anger, the attachment hiding underneath what you call love, and the ego hiding underneath what you call righteousness. It's humbling, sometimes brutally so, because the real spiritual journey isn't sitting in silence for an hour while incense burns beautifully in the background. The real spiritual journey is what happens when someone insults you and you have to decide whether to retaliate. It is what happens when you're rejected, misunderstood, judged, when your ego is badgered and bruised and butchered, when someone you love disappoints you, when you are angry enough to say something unforgivable and have to decide whether silence might be the wiser choice. That is the practice of spirituality. The meditation cushion is easy. The difficult part is becoming conscious in the middle of chaos, in the middle of a fight, and learning to very well detach from the past. And this is perhaps why I find the judgment around spirituality so fascinating, because some of the people who are most interested in policing my spirituality seem to have forgotten one of the most basic principles of it. You don't understand God or any superpower by judging other people and pointing fingers, for when you do, you're not finding God, you think you are God. And perhaps this is what I wish people understood. I'm not asking you to believe that I have become some enlightened being. I'm asking you to understand that I'm trying. Trying doesn't look perfect, growth doesn't look perfect, healing doesn't look perfect, spirituality certainly doesn't look perfect. Sometimes growth looks like recognizing a pattern 3 days after you repeated it. Sometimes healing looks like finally admitting that something hurt you and triggered you within rather than the external situation or person. Sometimes evolution looks like apologizing Sometimes spirituality looks like shutting your mouth when your ego desperately wants to say the last word. Sometimes it looks like walking away. Sometimes it looks like staying. Sometimes it looks like forgiveness. Sometimes it looks like boundaries. And sometimes, yes, it looks like making a spectacularly human mistake and then having to sit with yourself afterwards. I am allowed to be a work in progress. Actually, I think we are all allowed. But there is something particularly uncomfortable about allowing a spiritual person to be unfinished. People seem to want spirituality to come with visible proof. If you're spiritual, you should behave like this, eat this, don't eat that, drink this, never drink that, say this, never say that, react this way, never react that way. And if you ever deviate from the approved spiritual personality, someone will inevitably look at you with that expression, the I thought you were spiritual though expression. I have seen it, I have heard it, and honestly, I'm beginning to find it extremely funny. Because what exactly did you think spirituality meant? That I would stop being human altogether? That I would never get angry? That my ego would evaporate one fine morning after I have had my coffee? That I would float around the house speaking exclusively in Sanskrit and blessing everyone? No. I'm still me, just a little more aware me. And that distinction matters because spirituality isn't the absence of ego, it is the awareness of ego. It isn't the absence of anger, it is the awareness of what sits underneath the anger. It isn't the absence of desire, it is the awareness of how desire moves you. It isn't the absence of mistakes, it is the willingness to look at them without running away. That is the work, and believe me, the work is exhausting. It is one of the toughest things I have ever done in my life. There are days when I feel deeply connected to something larger than myself, and other days when I feel like I've learned absolutely nothing. There are days when meditation feels profound, and days when my mind behaves like a badly managed WhatsApp group. There are days when I feel detached and days when I respond first and find the grace somewhere much later. That doesn't mean the journey isn't real. It means I'm on it. And perhaps we need to stop confusing being on a spiritual path with having arrived at a spiritual destination. I haven't arrived. I don't know if anyone really does. I'm learning, questioning, unlearning, confronting, surrendering, rebuilding, and sometimes repeating lessons I was absolutely convinced I had already graduated from. That's life, that's growth, that's being plain human. So if you know me, please don't put me on a pedestal because I talk about spirituality. I don't want your pedestal. Pedestals are dangerous places because they make the person standing on them afraid to fall, and I would rather be free enough to fall, learn, laugh at myself, apologize, get up, and continue walking. I don't want to perform spirituality for anyone. I don't want to look spiritual. I want to become more conscious. There is a difference. And if my journey has taught me anything over these past 5 years, it is that the closer I get to something I love to call God, the less interested I become in telling other people how they should go find Him. Perhaps that's the irony. The people who are truly searching become quieter about declaring what everyone else should do. Because the deeper you go, the more you realize how little you know. Maybe humility is the beginning of wisdom. Maybe compassion is more spiritual than compliance. Maybe kindness is more sacred than dietary perfection. Maybe self awareness is more valuable than appearances. Maybe the person who loses their temper but later genuinely reflects on it is further along than the person who never loses their temper but spends their life judging everyone who does. I don't know anything, and I'm increasingly comfortable admitting and saying that I don't. So, yes, I am spiritual, but I'm also human. I will get angry, I will get confused, I will contradict myself, I will have desires, I will make mistakes, I will occasionally fail spectacularly at being the person I thought I had become, and then I will wake up the next morning and try again because that is my path, not yours. Not your definition of spirituality, not your checklist, not your moral audit. It's mine. And perhaps the greatest kindness you can offer someone on a spiritual journey is not to ask them why they haven't become a saint yet. It is to give them the space to become whoever they are becoming. After 5 years of searching for God, I think I'm finally beginning to understand something. Maybe finding God isn't about becoming perfect enough to deserve Him. Maybe it is about becoming humble enough to realize you never needed to be perfect in the first place, especially in His eyes. Maybe spirituality is not about being above human weakness, but about becoming intimate with it, understanding it, and slowly learning not to be ruled by it. Maybe the divine doesn't require us to become flawless before we approach it. Maybe it simply asks us to be honest. And if there is one thing these 5 years have taught me, it is that honesty is far more uncomfortable than holiness. I love that statement. Honesty is far more uncomfortable than holiness. I don't know where this path will take me, and I don't know what version of myself will be waiting at the end of it, but I know I am walking. I know I am trying. I know I am growing. And I know I am not interested in proving my spirituality or my judgment to anyone anymore. I would rather quietly live it imperfectly, privately, sometimes beautifully and sometimes shabbily, and let the journey speak for itself. So, if you are waiting for me to become a saint because I chose to become spiritual, I suggest you stop waiting. I'm not becoming a saint, I am becoming myself, only with a little more awareness, a little less certainty, a little more surrender, and a lot love. And perhaps that is enough. Thank you.